Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webcast, Upskill Your Analytics While Remote Online Dossier Design Workshop. Today with me, we have three great presenters. First, we've got Len OToole from InfoCepts, we've got Vijay Anand, and Rob Davis from MicroStrategy. So without further ado, I'm going to pass things off to Vijay. Take it away, Vijay.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us at today's webcast. It's all about upskilling your analytics while you're remote. I understand we're in unprecedented times, and I thank every one of you who are staying at home and doing your part in keeping this community safe. We at MicroStrategy are certainly doing that, but we continue bringing exciting new webcasts, much like this one. And this one is particularly special because we have a guest presenter with us today. We have Len OToole. He's an amazing MicroStrategy user. I've known him for several years, and I'm extremely proud to have him on this webcast. For those of you who are new to MicroStrategy, we'll be discussing best practices around dossier design. And for you, if you don't know what dossier is, it's our vehicle or channel for self-service data discovery. We launched Dossier about 2 years ago, and over the 2 years, it certainly has become the gold standard for self-service data discovery. But beyond that, there's a lot of contextual linking and workflows that's possible that takes self-service to workflow-based apps. And Len OToole is the perfect candidate to be talking about best practices design and how to design the perfect dossier. So without further adu, I'd like to introduce you to Len OToole.
Oh, thank you, Vijay. I'm so glad to be here today. I am looking forward to talking to you guys about dossier design, and hopefully this workshop will help you guys understand the capabilities of MicroStrategy Dossier, especially 2020. So without further ado, I'm going to get started here. And okay, just in case you don't know, my name is Len OToole. I'm a MicroStrategy specialist. I love this tool. I concentrate mainly on best practices for MicroStrategy with storytelling, with data and user adoption. Really enjoy doing this. In a previous life, I used to be an ETL data integration specialist. Probably about 20 years ago, I've even done some COBOL programming. So I'm getting old. So I'm originally from a small little town in Ireland, but I moved over here to the America about 20 years ago, and I stayed here, and now I'm living in Tampa, Florida. So really having a great time. Well, right now I'm working with a great company. It's a MicroStrategy partner called InfoCepts, and a lot of you know about InfoCepts, but if you haven't, let me just say that it's awesome. They're a data and analytics services firm, and we've been recognized by Gartner a bunch of times as being in the top 50 of data and analytics service firms in the country. Yeah, we've got the scale of a global consulting firm, yet the expertise of a niche partner, because we like to stick with our partners and do great things for our customers. So let me just briefly talk about what we do before we move on to the really good stuff. We have a bunch of centers of excellence. The one I work with mostly is the modern analytics sector, which is like voice-guided business intelligence, like using Alexa to ask MicroStrategy, hey, what are my sales for last month? Awesome stuff. I love to do data storytelling, enterprise BI, custom analytics, next-gen analytics. This is where I love hanging out. But we also have a center of analytics for data management, data integration, data movement, anything to do with data, we can help you guys. We can help you move to the cloud with cloud modernization. If you want to move from on-premise to cloud like everybody else, we can help you with those kind of migrations. And we also do a lot of strategic advisory services. I'm involved with some of these about data storytelling, user adoption, and yeah, so we can help you with everything. And if you decide that you don't want anything to do with your on-prem setup or your cloud setup, we can help you with managed services. We can, you can just outsource that to us, and we will just take that headache away from you. So yeah, we definitely are great partners. We're MicroStrategy partners, but we can help you with any data and analytics platform tool out there.
Thanks, Len. And this is Rob Davis from MicroStrategy. I mean, I really want to get into some of the things you're interested in our dossier features in MicroStrategy 2020. We've done a lot of work in this release to try to really address the issues of all people with different levels of data literacy. People who are looking for guided analysis, people who are looking for pixel perfect reports, people who are looking for fast insights on data. Could you give us a little insight on what you think are the most interesting features in dossiers in 2020 and the ones you find most useful?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. I've got a slide here that'll talk about the ones that I'm excited about. So the new features that I've seen in 2020 that are really exciting for me are on the dossier side, and one as simple as move and copy or duplicate your visualization. To me, that is such a great enabling feature. We had it in 2019, but it has been enhanced so dramatically in 2020. You can, I'll show you in my demos later, but it just speeds up your the process of building a dashboard. You build a visualization, you copy it, you duplicate it, you move it. You can crank out a dossier real fast with this functionality. So in 2020, that is awesome. The grouping functionality, love this. So simple. You can group visualizations into a single group. You can name the group, and you can move that group around your dossier as you please as a group. So no more moving and positioning individual visualizations one by one. Grouping also works great with responsive design. It tends to keep your visualizations grouped together even when it's morphing to the form factor that you're displaying your dossier on. There's a great new selector I'm excited about. It's present in documents, but now it's in dossiers where you can use I guess it's called I don't know what the official expression is, if it's an object selector, but it's a selector that allows you to select which metrics you want to see on your chart or your graph. So if you select total sales, it shows you total sales. Then you could select, total profit. It flips out total sales and puts in total profit. So it's very interactive. So I'm excited to play with this new selector in a few of my dashboards coming up, but stay tuned for that. The layers, this is actually layers and transparency are two fantastic features. These are the ones that excite me the most because I'm more of a creative. I like to put a little artistic touch on my dashboards and dossiers. So layers allow me to put my visualizations on top of images or on top of other visualizations. And transparency allows me to see through my visualizations so I can see a picture or a background behind that. It just adds a little design flair that I kind of like. And finally, contextual linking. I'm not going to demo this today, but this is a super, super powerful feature that I'm excited to play with. Think of it like you have a dossier and you change all your selectors. You select a country and a state, and you got all your filters set up. Well, you can set up a link within your dossier to link out to a totally separate dossier in a MicroStrategy environment, and it passes all those filters and selector values to the new dossier, so it's already pre-filtered when it launches. You don't have to reselect all your selections. Super powerful. I am looking forward to playing with that a lot.
Thanks, Len. And for those of you who are on the webcast today and want to learn about like the plethora of features that are available with MicroStrategy 2020 Update 1, we did a webcast recently. It's on our website. You go to the resource gallery and you'll find the full list of features that are available with Update 1. And I'm glad Len took the time to point out the subset of features that he's familiar with and is interested in for Dossier specifically. Now, Len, when you talk about creating dossiers, right? It's perfectly easy to go into MicroStrategy and create a quick bar chart or a line chart or a grid in a matter of minutes. You can connect to your source, prepare data, and bring it to a visualization and build a chart. But dossiers allow you to do more, right? It allows you to tell a story, right? And that's what we're trying to do with MicroStrategy. And for the viewers out here who are trying to understand, how do I tell that story? What are the best practices that you can share?
Sure. Yeah, there's so much power that we've been given with dossiers that it's kind of hard to know where to start. And when I'm trying to pick a visualization, I don't actually pick a visualization until I perform the first step first, which is define the story. It's like I have my data. You need to know what you're looking for in that data. What's the story that you're looking for in there? Because you've got to visualize that to share with your business consumers. So if you don't know what the story is, then what's the point in doing a visualization? So my first recommendation is find the story first. Once you have the story, an idea of the story, then you pick a visualization that best tells that story. And that's my process. Those are my two golden rules right there. Pick your story first and then your visualization. Now, MicroStrategy, you do a great job with the out-of-the-box defaults when you drag a new visualization onto the canvas. The standard defaults like the font colors and just the rendering of the visualizations is awesome. I love it from a design perspective, but the only variable here is your data is going to be different. So your data may need to be rendered a little bit differently. So keep in mind that every visualization that MicroStrategy gives you, you still need to give it a helping hand to tell the story of your data. So don't just go with the defaults, and I'll talk about that later, that you need to tweak some of the defaults so it works better with your data. 9 times out of 10, line charts and bar charts are like great go-to visualizations. They seem to work with almost any data type. It's a great place to start. So if you're at a loss to render your data, try a bar or line chart and see how it goes. So you'd be surprised. So 90% of my work is with line and bar charts. And I know pie charts, people cringe when they see those two words, pie chart. But it can be the right choice. For instance, people that use Excel are new to MicroStrategy and they've come from an Excel background. They're used to kind of clunky looking charts, especially pie charts. They like to use pie charts. And it's a good transition mechanism for dossiers is to maybe include this pie charts that they're used to seeing in Excel, include those in the new dossier so it looks familiar to them and they're not as scared of the fancy visualizations. It's like, oh, that's a pie chart. I know what that means. It helps with user adoption and it starts them off on the right foot for user adoption. And one thing I'd say about pie charts is make sure you help them understand why a pie chart may not work and give them a suggestion as to an alternative, like, hey, yeah, you can have your pie chart, but look at this other visualization to the right. Isn't this better? So you got to take care of your business users or your new users and give them the charts they're used to seeing. Don't scare them away with fancy visualizations. Another useful tool for picking visualizations is the chart picker. There's lots of different variations of this on the internet. This is one that InfoCepts has. It changes every few months when new visualizations come out, but it can be useful. I recommend this for new people to MicroStrategy who are just trying to say, oh, what would I use a bar chart for? And you'll see a bar chart over here on the right-hand side of the screen. It's good for comparisons of a single variable, whereas if you have two variables, you might use a scatter plot. It's useful for just giving you information. So I don't use these very often, but starting out, this is a great starting point. And in one of our books that's available to download at the end of the presentation, this book here, A Guide to Becoming a Data Storyteller, we've got the full high-resolution version in there, so you can print that off. Yeah, so those are some of my go-to ideas I'm building or picking the proper visualization.
That's great, Len. Thank you very much. I mean, that really resonates with me because when I have conversations with data, I often approach it the same way, right? I start by getting some raw data in. I look for insights in that. I start to look for what the story points are. And then I start to think about how do I tell that story to others? And so building a perfect dossier or a perfect dashboard or a perfect visualization is often a multi-step process where first you tell the story to yourself and then you figure out how to tell the story to others. And I know you put a lot of thinking into making over dossiers and how do you start with something that speaks to you and then build something that speaks to others. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you do that dossier makeover and how do you build something that can tell a story with data to everyone in the enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've got a few steps here. These are the kind of things I do every single time. It can get boring, you know, but I've got 7 or 8 little tips here that I do almost every time. And even if I don't do every one of these, I do ask myself the question, do I need to remove the background, or will I keep the background? Backgrounds can be very distracting. You've got to be very careful. It adds a bit more complexity and confusion. It's just extra stuff on your visualization that can reduce the meaning of what you're trying to tell with your story. So I like to consider removing backgrounds. I would say 99% of the time I remove the backgrounds, and with MicroStrategy 2020, you can just do transparency and just see right through. I also like to remove all the borders. I feel like the borders just add a bit of complexity and a box around your data, and it doesn't serve any function in my eyes. So I like to get rid of those most of the time. Again, if there's some lines on your, like bar charts could have axis lines and lots of different lines, just get rid of those lines or tone them down in color. But 99% of the time I remove lines, and I'll show you that later when I give you a few demos. The legends, MicroStrategy does a great job with legends, but I like to switch them off. It just gives me more real estate. When you take your legend out, it allows you to have more room for your visualization. If you do need a visualization, if I do, I sometimes create my own version in Photoshop, and then I put it on there as an image. It can be more artistic and more impactful. I like to remove access titles. I feel like the data, 99% of the time, you know what you're looking at if you give it a good title up there. So you might not need the access titles. So a lot of the times I get rid of access titles or I leave them. But I definitely ask myself the question, do I need them? Biggest key to having a good looking dashboard and a less intimidating, confusing dashboard is lighten your font colors. I like to go with medium tone grays, light gray, dark, medium grays, just all these different array of grays. I'm a poet. I like to do those, and along with these, then you have your highlight colors, which actually help you tell the story. And that's the whole point of a dossier, is you need to tell a story about your data. So lighten your font colors and then have your pop of a highlight color to boom, there's your story right there. And bottom line is that this plus any other techniques, you should be just trying to simplify the dossier, the look of it, so that all the noise goes to the back and then the story comes to the front. So always keep that in mind. Keep it simple. And standard practice for design type people is to reduce your ink to data ratio. And everything on the previous slide was about reducing the ink and the intensity and saturation, and make the data be the star of your dashboard dossier, because that's the most important part, are the insights, not how it looks and how it interacts or how it works. So guys, I'd like to show you some demos if you want. I've got some demos here I'd like to talk through about my process of doing a makeover on a few of the common chart types. And I'll start with the pie chart because everybody hates pie charts. So I'm going to show you how you could possibly make over a pie chart. And also I'd like to make a suggestion as to what you could use instead of a pie chart. So I'm going to start a little video here and I'm going to talk right through it. Okay, so this here is a standard looking Excel type dashboard that you would get. People like to use all these backgrounds, all these colors, pie charts, obviously. So, yeah. So I'm gonna just have you guys look at all these things. This should not be that uncommon to you guys. You should have seen these probably before, and they work, but I see just a lot of color and gray, and it's not really telling me a message, or it's like, what are you trying to show me here? So my process of doing a makeover is, in this case, I'm going to take the pie chart and I'm going to just make a copy. And in 2020, I can just copy that visualization into a new page and start from scratch. I love that feature. And here's a 2020 feature up here, convert to freeform layout. This is the magic. You click that button, you say yes, and nothing happens right now, but look when you catch the corner up here. Oh, that's so good. The old dossiers, they were very restrictive on container sizes for responsive layouts, but now you can drag and drop this guy anywhere. So let's do a few things here. I'm going to duplicate this because I want to keep this wonderful looking original, and let's do a makeover on this guy. As a side note, that's the layers panel. That's a new panel in 2020. You can do some things over here too, but we're not going to work with that too much today. Okay, let's give it a makeover, and tying into those 8 cards I had on the previous slide, here's what I do a lot of the time. I clear my background color. In this case, I did transparency, so I can see right through. And in the case of this, I'm seeing right through to white because my background is white. So that is standard practice. I remove the borders because borders are, I don't know what they're for. Get rid of them. Here I go with my favorite color, gray. Don't look at my hair. Yeah, so I like to tone down the ink here from black to gray. Black is not the best color. Let me just duplicate that because I think I'm done with that. I can't do anything else to that pie chart. There's too many slices. There's too much information. I don't know. I can see Southwest Airlines is something. But over here, Vitara Charts, they have some awesome plugins that add interactivity. So I'm going to convert this into a Vitara a donut chart. And look, you can click on it and it's interactive and it kind of moves around. So that's as exciting as a bar chart can get. So thank you, Vitara, for that. But I've got a better recommendation, I think. So let's duplicate this guy up here. And I am going to suggest that all pie charts should be a bar chart. Okay, so you're saying, what? Look at this thing. Let's make a few changes to this to really make it useful, because right now this is as useful as a pie chart. So let's go through a few of the things I usually do. I switch off the legend because right now I don't like that legend. It's taking up space. You see the way I got some space back. I got some more space, more visualization. The colors, I don't want any colors right now. I don't need a separate color for each airline. Why would I do that? So I'm going to neutralize it down to standard colors. And I don't know about you, but I cannot read sideways. So I like to flip my axis to make this into a horizontal bar chart. So now I can read all the airline names, no problem. It's just a user adoption thing I like to do. So the last trick here is to do a sort descending on this. And now all of a sudden, this chart is telling me an awesome story. It tells me who has the most delayed flights and who has the least, just by looking at it. Plus, you also get the relationship to all the other airlines, unlike the bar chart up there at the top. Or sorry, the pie chart. So you could stop right now, but I'm going to do a little makeover on this, change those fonts, make them pleasing. Always give it a very descriptive title to kind of describe what's in the visualization, because then you have to have less data points and markers and stuff in your visualization. So again, get rid of the black title, make it gray, a dark gray. I like to go bold and left aligned just to keep it standard. These titles, I don't see the point in having these here because I can see their airlines and I can see their flights delayed based on the title. So I would say just turn that off, and dossiers allow you to just turn those guys off and reclaim some space. You see, I'm getting more space from my visualization. That's the most important part. Okay, so it is pretty much done at this point, but I'm going to do one more step, which is, I think, the coolest part is the color by. So right now, everybody's got the same color on there, but I'm going to tell a little extra story. I'm going to create a new metric here. I'm going to create a rank metric on flights delayed. And MicroStrategy has hundreds of functions. I'm going to use the rank. And I'm going to say sort descending. So this is going to assign a rank from 1 to 10 based on the number of flights you have delayed. Okay, so now if I drag that new derived metric into the color by, it's going to do some, it's going to assign some default out-of-the-box coloring, which is fine. It's okay. But as I said earlier, you need to tweak what the defaults are. So I'm going to tweak the actual thresholds or the colors that you're seeing here. And I like to, in this case, I'm going to reduce it down to just 2 buckets. And because this is on ranking, I'm going to say whoever has the number 1 rank, which is actually the worst, number 1 rank, I'm going to give you a pop of my highlight color, which is, this case is orange. And then everybody else, I'm not as interested in you're not important to my story, so I'm going to make it gray, push it to the back and hit OK. And to me, this telling me, this tells me the story. Your eye immediately goes to the orange, like that's what I want you to see. So this is the kind of trick you got to play with your business users. You've got to guide them in to what you want to tell or what you want them to see. As opposed to having 10 different colors in that pie chart, now I tell you, oh, this is the worst airline, Southwest. Not sure why, because I think they're great. Anyways, okay, so guys, that was the pie chart. So I'm going to move on to a bar chart because I think bar charts are pretty cool, but also I think there's a lot of stuff we can do with this that we can tweak these guys as well to tell a better story. So I'm going to copy this to a new page, change it over to free format, or freeform canvas, and resize it down here. I love it. Okay, and you're going to see me doing a bit of repetition here. I'm going to go through my same process of adjusting all the colors and backgrounds, but it's just to show you guys that it's a repetitious process that you just go through every time. You kind of have to do it to pull that message out. So I'm going to show you how you do it with a bar chart, and bar charts are kind of useful in that there's a lot of right clicking that you can do on here, and I'll show you that shortly. Okay, so there's my no fill 2020 feature. So see through to the background. And if your background was black or something on this canvas, you'd see black as a background. In this case, it's white. Get rid of the border as always. And you can actually right click on the canvas here on those grid lines, and you can say hide those guys. I think that's noise. I'm reducing my ink to data ratio, get rid of those. There's the color. I've got a different color for every month. That's just killing me in my brain. So I'm going to take that out totally. You don't need to color code the months. Let's keep them all the same. Give it a nice little title up here. Change it from black to gray and left align, my usual. And being able to right click on the visualization is a great shortcut. Change that color down, and you'll see my months here are like long form months as well. I'm going to change that shortly. I don't like those. Let me get rid of these access titles first. And actually, let's change this. So here's a trick with numbers. Right now, the number is just in there is a big long number. Okay, I added a comma, but there's all these extra zeros that's extra ink that you need to get rid of. So if you go into number format and go into custom, there's a little button down here called condense, and that condenses, it gets rid of all those zeros, all that extra ink, and changes it to nice short things. And you notice I got more space back in my visualization, so that's what it's all about. So in month, I've got month on the horizontal, but you'll see they're long form months and they're all horizontal. I can't read those up down things. So I'm going to create a derived attribute based on month. I just want the first 3 characters of month, so I can use the left string function. I'm going to take month, comma 3, which is take the first 3 characters, give it a name, and then validate that. Okay, and I hit save. And now I'm going to replace month on the horizontal axis with my month first 3, just drop it in there. And you'll see that, oh, now I have the first 3. And also it has rotated 90 degrees. So now you can read it. I don't have to turn my head. So that's just another small little tip that I like to do. So the last step here is, okay, my bar chart takes up a lot of ink. There's a lot of orange on here. So I have a suggestion, and 99% of the time, I actually prefer this when you're talking about time trends, is to do a line chart, not a bar chart. It's telling me the same message here. It's a line, it's going over the months. You can see the trends. I don't need all that extra ink that's in there. So I'm going to go with a line chart as my recommendation. I'm going to go through the steps here that I've been doing with everything else. And I said this before, I wish I had a macro that I could record. MicroStrategy, I hope you're listening. I want you to give me a macro to apply all these changes that I do every time, because that would really be cool. Okay, let's see. One cool, let me fix this first. Left align. Okay, so it's already looking clean and slick and nice. And the good thing about a bar chart is now that I've freed up all that ink, I can add another piece of information on here. There's a reference line functionality in the format menu. I think it might be useful if you could add, in this case, I'm going to add average. So the average number of flight delays, if I click that, it now adds a little bit of extra information to the story that I'm trying to tell. So not only do I see the trend, I actually see how I'm trending above or below the average. And I think that's like free storytelling asset right there. So when you compare that to the original, I mean, it's simpler, it's easier to understand, and it tells you probably more information than what you had in the original. So I recommend line charts. Okay. And there you go. So tacked on to the end of this, there's a concept of double line charts. Like this is year-over-year performance. So these are delays for 1 year versus the previous year. So it's the exact same process to make this chart readable. I'm going to go through this real fast just to show you. I should accelerate this to 5 times speed so you can just go through this fast. Again, you'll see a lot of the same stuff. And ultimately, I want to get this to look like exactly like the one we had on the previous screen, but we'll have 2 lines. I find when you're doing year-over-year comparisons, using bar charts is not the way to go. Now, in this case, I actually changed it from every month having a color to just year-over-year. So now I can see the orange is 2019 and the gray is 2018. It's less complicated. I can compare that. It's much better than that left-hand chart. Let me just change the month to make it more readable. There we go. Let me change my number formatting, condense it down. Okay, so now you can kind of see a trend here, and you can also compare this year to last year. But again, just like the last one, I think bar chart has just got too much ink in there, and surprise, surprise, I'm going to recommend using a line chart here. I think it just does a better job. So let's just change this over to a line chart and just see what it looks like. Let me just clean it up first. Okay, so over here, I'm going to change it over to a line chart, and it sees 2 different attributes on there, or sorry, attribute values. So it says, oh, it's a double line chart. So this is kind of useful. You can see this year to last year, but you'll, yeah. So you'll see the problem. Let me reformat this. Sorry. I wish this wasn't. I bet there's a setting in Dossier preferences to default to a lighter color all the time, and I shouldn't be doing this. That's the problem with it. With Dossier is there's so many new things in there that you might have sneaked in these new features to me. Let me just change these 2 axis lines, and then I'll show you something that's important with these line charts. Okay, so you'll see over here where I've got the box that it's not originating from a 0 value. It's originating from like 2000 flight delays. So you need to uncheck that box up there to have your axis originate from 0, because if you don't have it originate from 0, then the ups and downs are more exaggerated, and there might only be a slight difference between one month and the next, but when you originate from like 0, it kind of flattens out that curve and it's less dramatic and it's more accurate. So that is something that you got to watch out for, is your originating axis, and that applies to a lot of the charts. And this is going to be the last makeover, and it's for the lowly grid, but every dossier seems to have a grid. Everybody who's coming from Excel over to dossiers, they kind of still want their grid, which is kind of cool, because up in the top right, you can export all the data to Excel. So people they feel comfortable, they feel less scared. It's like, well, at least I can get my data out of here. So, grids are important to keep in here. So you need to do a makeover on these, and the same rules apply, because a grid is a visualization. So we need to apply the same rules as to any other visualization, and that's to get rid of all this gray here. So I'm going to let it do its thing. Remove the borders. Get those fill colors out. In a grid, there's a lot of fill locations. Horizontal lines, I like to make those very gray. I need to push it towards the background. Black is not the color. Vertical lines, I like to get rid of my vertical lines. I don't think they add any value. They just add more clutter. So let's change the fill color here to transparent. Oh, it's getting better. Look at this brightness coming into my life here. This gray was bringing me down. Here we go. This is the big one. That's good. Okay, and then I need to adjust all these horizontal lines, change the color, lighten it up. So the lines don't tell a message. So if it's not telling a story, you need to push that back to the background, in my opinion. Okay, let me tweak the column headers. Okay. And we're getting nice and clean now. Yeah, so there are a lot of more things you could do to this grid, which I won't do in this demo, but you should always think about embellishing the grid with a bit of color thresholding to highlight, make stuff pop, because this is black and white right now, gray and white. But you could have stuff pop with color thresholding, up, down arrows, stuff like that you should definitely do to improve the user experience. But out of the box, you should probably make all these changes. There we go. I think we're looking good. It's a little too light. I need to darken that. You don't want to strain people's eyes. You got to think about your users all the time. Okay. Okay, so I mean, it's not a huge difference. I think it's a bigger difference. It's just easier on the eye. And if we had color thresholding in there, then the important information would pop, and right up on the very top with all that gray, you wouldn't even see what the message is. So there's some, one last thing on grids is there's some out-of-the-box templates that you can use that MicroStrategy gives you. You can just click on these and it kind of does some coloring. Classic view if you like the header like that. I kind of like this yellow header or orange header, but I'm going to go with the flat and just change this back. Also, there's a padding, a cell padding, which is useful for readability. There's small, medium, and large padding. That's just to give a little breathing room around all your cells. Small can be very compact, so I usually go medium. Just keep it in there. I'm actually going to move this on here to put the whole thing together. So I'm going to take all those visualizations that I created and just move those onto a new dashboard, a new dossier, and just show you how quick it is to build out that new dossier when you have all the visualizations. So all you need to do is go to find all your visualizations that you've got and do a copy. In this case, I'm going to do a copy to a new page and just set this first one to freeform so I can get control back. Okay, and then I'm going to go to all the other visualizations, and then I just say copy to that page, and it drops it in there. It keeps all the formatting, keeps all the colors, sometimes it mostly keeps the size. So as far as cranking out a lot of work, you can rebuild dossiers so fast with copy. Okay, and let me get my grid. There it is. Let me just pull it over. I love these red snapping lines. These will help guide you to position your stuff more accurately. They're awesome. But sometimes I like to position stuff using the percentage stuff over here. The position and size, X, Y, and width and height. So I've got these already, so I'm just going to type those in just to get those positions spot on. Okay, so let me just fix the grid here. Going to wrap up in about 30 seconds. Excuse me. All that's missing is a title. So good thing is with titles, you can create those and you can copy these from dossier to dossier. So in the old days, you couldn't do that for some reason. Now you can. So it's an awesome addition. And the same with images, you can copy, duplicate images too. Let me just change the look and feel of this and the positioning. This isn't going to be the best looking dashboard you've ever seen, but compared to the before, it's going to be awesome. I'm going to pull in an image here of an airplane. Cool thing about images is you can pull them in from your local hard drive and they get embedded within the dossier. So they don't even have to reside on a shared network location. Here you go, got a dashboard. You notice that most of it is gray because it's all noise, and I've highlighted the stuff that I want people to see. So here's before, I hope, which is the same information, but it's like there's nothing there's not telling me anything. So this is the process that I go through to take a suspect looking dashboard and our dossier and do a little makeover and bring it into the 2020s. So there you go.
My God, Len, I must tell you that the last 25 minutes or so of your demos, certainly the most I've learned during this entire season of staying at home. So thank you for that. You know, they say the picture's worth 1,000 words. Your demos are worth 1 billion words.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. You know, for those of you who are actually wondering, is it that hard? It's not. Like, you make it fairly simple. I mean, you know, I was thinking if you are a brand new user to MicroStrategy and you're looking at it for the very first time, you can potentially go from data to a dossier in under 10 minutes, right? But what we're talking about is conveying that story, and it's much like writing a book or building a PowerPoint presentation or sketching anything. It takes some framing and obviously some design elements come in, and you can certainly take a 90s looking Excel spreadsheet kind of chart and make a 2020 worth of data-oriented storytelling. So thank you for that. That was very, very enlightening in term, and certainly something that I can certainly use as I build out my dashboard. I'm just a marketing guy, but I certainly use data to do a lot of my work, and this certainly helps me do that by prettifying my work. So again, thank you. Are there examples of this? Now, I know certainly you brought out the best practices, and I'd love to hear some examples if you can showcase. And again, demos are always worth a lot more to this audience, so I'd love to see more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I have an example here. So I'll just set this up. So visualizations, so you start with data and then you visualize the data, but it's not all about dragging your rows and columns on there and visualizing something. It's also about telling a story. And by telling a story, you're telling a a business story, like a compelling reason why the data is, why your company is performing a certain way. You've got to identify what that is. So you've got to be able to tell the story with your data, because the visualizations are not enough. So a lot of companies are a little lacking on that, and it just makes so much difference if you tell a proper story. So this little 3-minute demo is a very quick one I did recently. It's about, unfortunately, a terrible topic, COVID-19. But the situation is, I want to identify the most impacted counties in the US. I have a data set. I want to identify the most impacted counties. And I'm a hypothetical warehouse manager, and I want to get supplies from a warehouse to the most impacted counties. So I have a data set. I got it from Johns Hopkins Hospital, and I use that just to kind of show people how to tell a story. It's a hypothetical story, of course. So let me just play this video here. So this is just your plain old data set. It's got US counties with confirmed cases and dates and stuff like that. It doesn't tell me any message. I don't know which counties are the most impacted here. So I decided to put this on a map. And this is MicroStrategy 2020 with layers and see-through and transparency. But basically, this is just the out-of-the-box map with circle markers, not really telling me a great story. So I changed it over to bubbles. So bubble sizes indicate the number of cases. So it's like, okay, there's a story forming here a little bit. These are obviously some of the worst case counties. But again, there's a lot of noise on here. Look at all those extra small dots. So I said, okay, to get a better story, maybe I should change this over to an area chart, which MicroStrategy does out of the box. I stuck with the out-of-the-box thresholds at 20, 40, 60, 80%. And it tells a decent story. Light color means less cases of COVID-19, and darker colors means more cases. But, and you can hover over the counties like that. Pretty cool. Unfortunately, you know, here like in Arizona, Coconino County, I like that county actually, not a lot of cases, but it's colored dark blue, just like up here in Fairfield, Connecticut. It's like, okay, so they're the same color, but one is worse than the other. So it's not really telling me the message correctly. So I pushed all the noise into the background by turning everything to gray. The top 95% of counties with cases, I've made different shades of gray, and only the top 5% have a pop of color as my highlight color. So now I can look at this map and I can see the top 5% of counties that have been impacted by COVID-19. And then I kind of took it a few steps further. I showed you top 2%, which really narrows it down. And then I went to top 1%, which is like the worst impacted counties in the country. So now I kind of know, and you see that legend I have at the bottom, that's a custom legend. I built that in Photoshop and I just put it on there as an image. So now I have my top 1% of counties. I also, I'm going to do next is overlay another layer on that map, which MicroStrategy Dossiers allow you to do. This extra layer has got the city locations of my distribution warehouses. So now I can add, when I put that layer on top of my 1% counties, I can see visually and contextually how close I am to the impacted areas. I can also see the stocking levels, like Richmond, Virginia is only 20% stocking level. Obviously, that's not a good warehouse to distribute my supplies from, but you can just keep adding layers of context onto this. And this is how you tell a story. You don't just give the people a spreadsheet. You kind of give them the tools to actually find a story in there. So MicroStrategy dossiers with freeform layouts it's awesome. So I'm in love.
To close it out then, Len, I mean, give us some summary of your best practices, sure, tips and tricks about how people can use Dossier to go from finding their own insights in the data to communicating those insights to other people in the enterprise.
Yeah, sure, Rob. Yeah, I've got a few standard best practices here that you can take away, and a lot of people should know this, but these are practices that I follow. So the inclination is to use lots of images in there because you can do freeform, you can drop images in there. Just watch out, don't put too many in there. Don't make them too complicated as backgrounds because they'll make it difficult to read the message on your dashboard. Less is more with backgrounds and images. And one thing to watch out with images is don't upload a high resolution image that's print quality, because people are going to be looking at this on a telephone, dossier or library for mobile or library for web. You don't need to be high resolution images. So make sure they're web ready images so they load fast. It's all about performance. Your images are going to slow down your dossier loading time. So watch out for those guys. We've talked through this, reduce your ink to data ratio, get rid of all those background colors, legends, access lines, all those kind of things. We saw this too, desaturate your colors. I like to go for neutral gray colors and then use a highlight color to show my message. That's just been a proven great design practice to follow. And dossiers give you the capabilities of putting in chapters and pages. I encourage you to create chapters and pages within chapters. Think of it like a book. You hand somebody a book and there's multiple chapters, and then within each chapter you've got different, in this case, insights. So think of it like it's a book. Don't put everything into one chapter. Help the end user understand what's in this dossier by giving it nice chapter names and page names. Just make it easy as a book to read. And anytime you're building or designing a dossier or any kind of dashboard, just keep asking yourself, what's the story? What am I trying to tell? Don't just put a grid on there just because it's easy. You need to tell a story, and that's where the value is. And then I do have some more tips here on this page for when you're designing a dossier. You should also think about the performance, and images are something that's going to slow down your dossier loading. So too is too much data. It doesn't matter what tool you use. There's lots of tools out there. It doesn't matter which one you use. If you put too much data in, your tool, it just can't handle that kind of quantity. So limit your data, get pre-aggregated data from your IT department, use prompted data sets to filter it down, but too much in, you're not going to have a good time. And I mentioned putting stuff into chapters and pages. A performance consideration would be the more pages you have in a dossier, it's just more stuff in that one object. You might want to consider with MicroStrategy 2020 to actually split it into multiple dossiers and then do contextual linking between the two. That just limits the size of each object, and you're just going to have a better experience, I think. Your data sources, yes, you can pull in from Excel and stuff to do ad hoc stuff, but if you're doing enterprise type of analysis, pull in from in-memory data cubes. These are all resident in memory, and it's going to be super, super fast. You can do connections to databases, but you've got some latency and wait times, and just do your in-memory data sets. That's my summary. Yeah, there's a few tweaks you can make. There's a few settings. You can say load chapter on demand, which means when you open up your dossier, it doesn't wait to render all the pages and all the chapters. It just loads up the data of your current chapter, and then it renders. When you go to the next chapter, it loads the data. So it parses out the load time. And there's also an option to load with no data. It's great for development. And finally, derived attributes, metrics, and groups, they all add a little bit of processing time required by dossiers. I find that they're great, but if you don't need an attribute or a metric or a group and you're not using them, you need to pull those out of your dossier. You don't need them in there because they're actually consuming resources, because I'm pretty sure they do the calculations even if you're not using even if you're not using it. So stuff you're not using, just clean up your dossier, get rid of them. You don't need them in there. And guys, I think I'm going to wrap up. I've got some resources here I'd like to share with everybody. I find them useful. obviously, I work with a great company, InfoCepts. And we actually have I think it's 20 people on our data visualization design team. We have we do design work. But they've written a few books here that you can download from infocepts.com/downloads. You can download all these, they're all free. There's a few more pieces of information out there, but I recommend the one in the middle here, the Guide to Becoming a Data Storyteller. I think it's just a few pages shy of 100 pages of goodness. So this is a great book. I think we should charge for this, but it's free. And yeah, I love our data visualization team. They've got so many international awards. It's impressive. So when we design stuff, we don't design it just for MicroStrategy. We think about, well, what if somebody moves to a different tool 10 years down the road? Or we like to create a design or platform agnostic kind of solution that will work. So our guys are awesome. They don't just build dashboard designs. We think about your possible trip with BI down the road. So finally, I've got these 3 books are on my bookshelf behind me. These are ones that I really, really love. My all-time favorite for easy consumption is the middle one by Cole. She has a great book called Storytelling with Data. It's just easy to look at, easy to pick up and just go through it. The other 2, left and right, are by Stephen Few, who's a thought leader in this whole space. And if I were to pick one of these, I think his information dashboard design on the left is awesome. It's easy to pick up and just read through it. And I'm going to leave you guys with one piece of advice just from my perspective. And it's like, I think everybody needs to do this in order to improve their dossier designs let's say, enabling your user community. And it's the easiest thing, I won't say it's easiest, but it's probably the best thing you could do, and that's upgrade to MicroStrategy 2020. And these guys didn't ask me to say this, but since I've seen MicroStrategy 2020 and the features that are in there, it's night and day even compared to 2019. It hurts me when I hear people are upgrading to 2019. It's like, oh, please upgrade to 2020. You do yourself a favor. So seriously, 2020 is the way to go. And I'm going to leave it at that. I hope I didn't talk everybody's ear off, and I'm going to pass it back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Len, Vijay, and Rob. That was a great presentation. For all the questions that we were unable to get to, we will send you guys answers to those directly via email. Also, just a reminder, you will receive a recording via email in the next couple business days. All right, that said, I'm going to conclude the presentation. Thanks, everyone.